welcome back to the Football Kingdom podcast. The Chiefs have just finished up their bye week, and for not having to play a game this week, this week couldn't have gone any better for the Chiefs. Most, if not all, of the teams that needed to lose, that the Chiefs needed to lose, ended up losing this week. So, pretty good week to have off if you're the Chiefs. And I think it's that time of year. We're about midway through the season that we should take a look at the playoff picture. Who we think's going to be in, who's in the hunt, what teams we think are going to end up missing the playoffs altogether. And we're going to do that this week. As always, I'm Brandon Johnson. I have Tyler Mallon with me. Tyler, how we doing today?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this. Pretty interesting to see where teams are versus where we thought they would be. And yeah, I know we didn't talk about it pre-show just now, like 5 seconds ago, but yeah, I would like to cover a little bit of last night's game because we'll kind of cover that with the Bills and what's going on with them. But yeah, I watched the Manning cast as normal instead of the Troy and Joe Buck version, and they had Mahomes on last night, and it was like 20 minutes of Mahomes just throwing down his football knowledge, which was so cool because there wasn't a whole lot going on when he was on. Like they were in I think it was in the second quarter by the time Mahomes got in there, and he straight up predicted like 6 defensive plays in a row. I mean, he straight up called like, okay, number 42, this guy's going to be QB spy, and he is exactly like he knew exactly what was happening. And then because they always do like a drive prediction or a touchdown prediction, and they put their face up on the wall, and Mahomes straight called a 3-play touchdown drive, which was run, and then play action pass, and it's exactly what happened, which was awesome. But yeah, once again, Manning cast rules overall. Having seen Mahomes on there was so
You gonna
cool.
watch the Manning cast next week for Chiefs game?
I think I will. I just
Can't
love
do
it. It's so good. Really?
I like Joe Buck.
Okay, we'll cover
Aikman,
both.
So
I do too, but I love those guys. It's so entertaining. When they had a skier on, I guess like an Olympic skier, like she didn't have a whole lot to say. That was like the one kind of dud for the whole season, quite honestly. But yeah, we'll cover both bases. I'll watch Manning Cash. You watch those guys.
Gotcha. Yeah. So let's start with the AFC.
Yes.
And looking at this right now, the top 4 teams, 2 of them, I would have, or excuse me, the division leaders, 2 of them, I think neither of us are surprised, with the Chiefs leading the West and the Jaguars leading the South. But looking at the North and the East, I think it's fair to say, Tyler, that you and I both had the Bengals leading the North and the Bills leading the East. Is that correct?
For sure.
So
definitely.
So on top of the North, Baltimore Ravens, who have looked really, really good. And then on top of the East, the Dolphins, who offensively have also looked great. Now, a lot of people would argue that they haven't played anybody. But you have a Bills team that we all expected to... Well, okay. I think I was kind of on the fence about them. But and I think even last week I said, I'm not sure if this team is going to make the playoffs. And I'll be honest with you. Yeah, this past week kind of further solidified that for me. Bills are 5-5. And things are kind of crumbling for them. They lost to a terrible Broncos team at home. And they fired their offensive coordinator. So Tyler, what are the odds of the Bills being in the playoffs?
I don't really know because they've been so good for so long, but there's been a lot of talk about how they've kind of kept the same guys around, and that doesn't work. And as a fan of the NFL and a football team, I've always been that way. I've always kind of, had that innocence, of like, I want my favorite players to be on my team forever. And that's just not how sports in general work at all. And I haven't really done a deep dive on the Bills and their team, but that's just kind of what I've heard of, like, they really haven't made a whole lot of changes and brought in guys that they kind of need in key spots, in key play positions. But yeah, what I watched last night is like, and I responded whenever you sent me the news of when they fired their OC. I was like, oh, that makes sense. But I'm also like, is it his fault or whose fault is it really? I mean, that's another thing. Is it's like he's kind of like the scapegoat here, and they have to do something because they really have looked bad. The running game. I mean, honestly, yeah. Last night you watched that game. They've had maybe 2 drives where they looked like the classic Bills, where they're playing the Chiefs really hard, and you're like, okay, these guys, this is who they are. Every other drive is like there's so many turnovers, a lot of mistakes, and there's just no cohesion. There's no like, okay, we're gonna run this play and do a run play and a versus a pass play. It feels like they don't know what they are.
I think
So I don't know where that's gonna
I
put
think at
them.
a certain point you have to start pointing the finger at Josh Allen. He's a turnover machine at this point.
Yeah, he has. What does he already have?
He already has 11 interceptions on the season.
11, yeah. So people are. That's the other thing, is like, he has more touchdowns than Mahomes, and I mean, Mahomes has 8 interceptions and hasn't looked that great. And I'm like, okay, but that doesn't typically, like, a good QB is going to save you, but he has not been that good. He was the cause of one of those fumbles. I think they had 3. They had 5 turnovers last night. 3 of them were his fault. Like, just straight up. So he's almost a liability. He's still Josh Allen, but with their offensive troubles, he's not helping them. So,
and
I don't know. I mean, go ahead.
On top of Josh Allen, we had the whole Stephon Diggs thing in the offseason.
Sure.
There's a locker room fractured, and they tried to kind of shove that down. And guess what came back up this weekend? Or excuse me, really more today. Trayvon Diggs, brother of Stephon Diggs, was like, hey, Stephon Diggs needs to get on out of Buffalo at a certain point. And then he said, he had a later tweet that basically said Josh Allen was nothing until Diggs showed up. So it is ridiculous. Crumbling in Buffalo.
Yeah. He doesn't need any help. Stephon can stick his own foot in his mouth, but we're past the trade deadline. Why is his brother talking on Twitter? I don't know. But yeah, crumbling is definitely a good word there. But I don't know. I mean, in terms of with the AFC East, I don't know. It's going to be tough for them to get a wild card spot. I don't really see them finishing the season strong with what we saw last night and how their season's gone. The Dolphins, I think, are in a much stronger position, and I think other teams in the rest of the AFC are probably going to take up those AFC spots, or wild card spots.
Yeah, I think, because I mean, if you look at it, there's a possibility that all 4 AFC North teams could find a way into the playoffs, which is wild to think about.
Yeah.
But looking at the Bills, and we'll get to the AFC North in a second, but looking at the Bills, their schedule, next week they played the Jets, who they've already lost to. Then they play the Eagles, who I think at this point we can probably say are the best team in the NFL. After the Eagles, Chiefs. Then they play the Cowboys, who, flip a coin. play the Chargers. Also, flip a coin. Patriots, Bill Belichick in the division. Don't know. And then they close the season against Dolphins. So this could go south fast for Buffalo.
Yeah. Yeah, that is actually that's the one I did not look at in the future, and that's a rough schedule. There's not a whole lot of wins that they could pull out with the troubles they've had, so that'll be interesting. I mean, week 18 or whatever against the Dolphins, maybe the Dolphins don't. If they're even in the hunt,
it might not matter for
maybe the Dolphins are already
that might not
in.
matter for the Dolphins, but I could also see the Dolphins trying to play spoiler. Hey,
Right.
we don't need to play, but we don't want to see you, so we're going to make sure that we win.
Right.
So I think heading into week 11, it's hard for me to see a possibility where the Bills are part of the playoffs. And I'm going to be honest with you. If we're looking at the Cincinnati Bengals, I'll know more after the Bengals play Baltimore on Thursday. If the Bengals lose to Baltimore, I'm going to write the Bengals out of the playoffs too. But if the Bengals win, I can see a path of them getting hot and playing really good football down the stretch.
Yeah, that one I'm not ready for that. Because I don't see, because as it stands, the Browns are the 6th seed.
Okay.
They'd be playing the Jags, and the Steelers are the 5th seed. I don't see either one of those teams really. The Browns, I mean, they're pretty strong. Their defense is insane. Myles Garrett is insane.
Their defense can win a Super Bowl.
And they're way better off than, say, like the Jets, who have Zach Wilson. Deshaun Watson can be half the man that he has ever been, which is better than what Zach has ever been. They have a much better chance. So I'm talking myself out of this, but I think the Steelers aren't. They've had some wacky games, and they always have like these weird like last minute comeback games, and I don't really think they're built to make a playoff run. So yeah, I think Browns. I think the Bengals could still come in. I was going to look at their schedule.
I got their schedule. Their remaining schedule is rough. Every team that they're playing from here on out is either 500 or better. So obviously they go into Baltimore on Thursday, then they play the Steelers, then Jacksonville, then Indianapolis, then the Vikings. The Vikings are looking better than we kind of thought they were going to be. I mean, I know a couple weeks ago I felt like, hey, this team could make the playoffs. Then they lost Kirk Cousins, but Josh Dobbs has come in and looked really good. And then after the Vikings, they're going to play the Steelers again. Then they have the Chiefs on New Year's Eve in Kansas City. And then they're going to finish the season out playing the Browns. And I don't need to remind everybody, but the Browns kind of own Joe Burrow and the Bengals. So
true.
I know that the New Year's Eve game against the Chiefs was kind of set up by the schedule makers of, this has 1 seed implications, but that might be a week where the Bengals are fighting for their playoff life.
Right. Now, yeah, you look at it this way, and that is, yeah, you're talking me into more of like Bengals not even having a chance there. That is they've actually set themselves up for kind of failure here. So that's tough. Yeah, that is actually pretty rough into the year. So
yeah, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the Chiefs are gonna hold on, and to me, this is looking like it's gonna be a weird playoffs in the AFC as far as teams that are involved. It's gonna be, you expected the Chiefs, Bills, and Bengals to be 1, 2, and 3 on this list, and barring a miracle, it's looking like 2 of those teams might not even get invited to the party.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, and honestly, the Ravens, they got to take care of business too. They don't have They had a couple easy games, but yeah, they got the Jags, Niners, Dolphins as well coming up. So, but yeah, they've been much stronger as a team, than the Bengals have. So,
Yep. Yep. Dolphins. And then if we're just gonna keep looking at schedules, Dolphins, their schedule's pretty soft the rest of the way as well. So they've got a game against the Ravens late in the season and the Cowboys and the Bills. And by January 7th, I don't know what the Bills are even gonna look like. So
right.
But yeah, so the AFC, I'll just read through it 1 through 7. If the season ended today, Chiefs would be the 1 seed. Ravens, Jaguars, Dolphins are your 2, 3, and 4 seeds. The rest of your division winners, and then your three wildcard teams: Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and Houston. Houston is a team that I actually think will make the playoffs. I think that they have surprised everybody, and CJ Stroud has played out of his mind. He is everything that you could wish for in a rookie quarterback. And with the Steelers, I don't think either of us are big Kenny Pickett guys, but I think we're both big Mike Tomlin guys. So I think that Mike Tomlin can coach his way into the playoffs with that Steelers team.
I would never doubt him, but this is probably the weakest team. I mean, didn't he have Trubisky? Oh no, he had
Mason Rudolph.
Dude, I don't know. Yeah, that guy. So I don't know. Yeah, I won't doubt him, but I do. I think the rest of that division is so strong. I just think the Bengals are capable of so much more, and the Steelers have just been on the edge. They are almost like this year's Vikings. You know what I mean? They're not quite there, but they've had some really close games, and some games that they should not have even been in as well. So that again probably speaks to coaching, but
yeah.
In talking about the Texans, they have pretty easy schedule coming out because they play the Cardinals, they play the Jags. So that has a lot of implications there. They got the Broncos, the Jets, Titans, the Browns, and then the Titans again, and then the Colts to end it. I would be shocked if they don't make the wild card, and if the Jaguars don't somehow drop the ball, and throw the division away. They might even win the division.
Yeah, I don't see Jacksonville doing that, but yeah, I think Texans are early to the party, and I think that they're going to stay a while. But I mean, there's a lot of teams in the AFC that are knocking on the door, and there's obviously not enough spaces for all of them. Obviously, the Colts are a little better than we thought they were going to be. If you would have told me they would be 5-5, 10 games into the season, I would have said you're crazy. The Raiders have kind of a new life over in Las Vegas. New motivation. So, I mean, we got a fun second half of the season if we're looking at the AFC.
Yes, we do. Not so much for the NFC.
Yeah, and let's go ahead and hop over to the NFC if you're ready.
I want to do one thing real fast. I was looking at NFL stat leaders. Who do you think is leading in passing yards right now?
In passing yards, is it Russell Wilson?
No.
I don't know.
It is Sam Howell.
Really?
Of the Commanders. Okay. Yeah. I was shocked. Like, what in the world? He has 2,700 passing yards. The dude has 47 sacks. Ooh. 47. It's not even close. Though the next guy closest is 33, Zach Wilson. And then you got Russell Wilson right below him with 30 sacks.
Wilson brothers.
Yeah. I mean, I just thought that was shocking because, yeah, you got CJ Stroud again, 2,600 in second place. Tua's got 2,600 in third. You got Josh Allen again with 26. And Jared Goff is 2,500.
Jared Goff.
Top 5. Patrick Mahomes is right there.
Jared Goff is just balling out. He's just doing his thing in Detroit.
He has so many receivers and whoever his tight end is, can't remember, but yeah, crazy. I just saw that and I'm like, there's not a million years would I have guessed. And will you guess? It's Sam Howell has 2,700 passing
Yeah,
yards.
you have to remind me that Sam
Just
Howell
absurd.
exists, honestly.
Yeah.
So,
I don't think I've even seen them play this year.
I mean, I'm trying not to, but
It's a good.
so yeah, moving on to the NFC, you have the NFL's best record, Philadelphia Eagles, the super fun Detroit Lions, the 49ers who got back on the right track this weekend, and the old New Orleans Saints at 5-5, 4 seed, leading the NFC South. I think the Saints. We looked at the NFC at the beginning of the year and said that it's gonna be a weak conference, and I think we said that the Saints could win that division, winning 8 or 9 games, and
Right.
it's still feeling like that's exactly what's going to happen. The Buccaneers got off to a hot start and kind of ended up coming back to earth. I think they started 3-1. They're obviously 4-5 at this point, and I think the Saints are going to hold on to that incredibly boring division. I actually think looking at this, you're going to have a possibility of a team in the NFC making the playoffs that's 500 or maybe even below.
The NFC sucks. They're just that whole division. I mean, my goodness. They basically have the division leaders, and that's about it. Everyone else is bordering on pretender to just terrible territory. I mean, it's pretty bad looking at all the records. But yeah, the Saints, I mean, Derek Carr is who he is. He's going to, win some games for you and probably kind of lose some games. I don't know. It's his first year. They haven't looked awful, and 5-5 in that division is going to get it done, and they are what they are. I think they had two pretty big I think Michael Thomas and I can't remember who else. There was some other guy who had a pretty big injury, but they're on bye, and it really shouldn't be a speed bump for them as for the whole season. But I don't know. I mean, Baker could come back. If the Falcons could figure their pretty awesome playmakers out, I think they need a better coach. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really. They do not utilize their players the way that they should. And
they keep going back and forth on their QB, and they can't figure out what they want to do.
But Eagles, Lions, 49ers, those are the three teams that you're like, okay, they are legit. And then as you said, everybody else, they're there. Seahawks, I think the Seahawks are good. I think you and I agree that the Cowboys are just gonna collapse in the playoffs as they always do. They're gonna win 12 games and embarrass themselves. And then the Vikings, we've already said it. I think they're gonna be fun and probably will be that 7 seed, but part of me is like, okay, is the other shoe gonna drop on this whole Josh Dobbs thing?
I don't think so. I mean, I am rooting for the Vikings.
Oh, me too.
Like, they're so much fun, especially Josh Dobbs coming in, and the last game he had. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, he's their hero to come in, and the way that Kirk went out, and that is, they absolutely deserve, just for the story and that group of guys, they really deserve to make the playoffs one way or the other, however far they get. they could be pretty spicy and surprise, maybe win a playoff game. But I mean, yeah, that's kind of it. I mean, the Niners, I don't think they're going to be giving up anything to the Seahawks as good as the Seahawks defense is. And yeah, you're right with the Cowboys. I think this is it. I mean, I think we're looking at the rest of the year. Unless something drastic happens, there's like no move. I don't see anybody coming up who's in the hunt. The Bucks, Commanders, Falcons, like I don't see them making any moves to
I
make a playoff
my only
run.
thing with the Seahawks, because we've seen vulnerabilities with the 49ers. My only thing with the Seahawks is they have yet to play the 49ers. They still have two coming up. Their first meeting is in Seattle on Thanksgiving, and then they'll see them 2 weeks later in San Francisco. So as much as I want to believe that the 49ers are going to win that division, they have yet to see the opponent that has a legitimate shot at challenging them.
Sure. Yeah, the Seahawks got a rough schedule coming up, and that'll be interesting because do you remember what kind of games those two teams have? Doesn't one team own the other? Or am I thinking of the Rams and the Seahawks?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But yeah, looking at the 49ers, they got the Bucks, which that should be a easy win, but then it's Seahawks, Eagles, Seahawks, which is it's not an easy 3-week slate. You hope to at least split with Seattle and hope to beat Philadelphia. And then Cardinals, Ravens, Commanders, Rams. So that's what the 49ers are looking at. But I was kind of looking at the Seahawks as well. And like I said, they've got 2 against the 49ers, obviously. They will also see the Eagles, but probably a little bit easier. They've got the Steelers at the end of the year, and we'll kind of see where the Steelers are at a month from now. But
yeah, they close out Titans, Steelers, Cardinals. Depending on where they're at, they should be able to take care of those games and keep themselves in a good position.
But yeah, man, the NFC. I actually saw. I don't even know who it was, ESPN, The Athletic, or whoever. It was a push notification on my phone that was like, "Is the NFC stronger than the AFC?" And I was like, "Checks records. Nope, not even close." You have
Where did that come from?
11 teams, 10, 11 teams that realistically could get hot and really push for the playoffs and make the last 3 weeks of the season really interesting. And then I go and look at the NFC and I'm like, the 7 seed and the 8 seed have 2 games separating them. And
right,
the 8 seed is under 500 and then it just goes downhill after that. So I'm like,
oh, exactly.
Don't tell me that the NFC, maybe from the top, like I would argue like the Eagles and Lions are legit, and you could say, okay, we have some questions about Baltimore and Jacksonville and Miami. And I mean, you could even make arguments that we are unsure about the Chiefs a little bit, but
all those teams have been there though, and they've been a threat, either a threat or they've been in the playoffs in the last 3 years. The rest of this NFC is just, we were not even closing in on 500 records, and they've looked terrible for 3 years, and they've looked terrible this year. Like, it's not even close.
Yeah, for me, I'll be interested with the Lions. it's one of those deals where, not to belittle the great season that they're having, but it's one of those things where like I got to see you have some playoff success, because we've seen that with the Ravens, or the year that Lamar won MVP. We're like, oh, the Ravens are the 1 seed. They won 14 games. They're going to win the Super Bowl, and they got beat by Tennessee at home in the division round. So
yeah, and I'm still not quite a believer this year. They look so much better because they've actually dominated games, but I don't know. That last game, who did they play? I don't even remember who they played, but it wasn't pretty, and it's just like a lot of coaching mistakes, a lot of mental mistakes. They've had games where it's drop city and nobody's helping Lamar. I don't know. I think they're still kind of primed to be a disappointment in the playoffs.
I think you're right. This is going to sound kind of funny, but I don't believe in the Ravens like that either. Like I said, I think they're good and they seem much improved, but I believe more in the Bengals finding a way to get hot and catch the Ravens.
Right.
And that, like, I am still, with, despite everything we said earlier, like, I still feel like there's just because we've seen it for 3 years in a row, the Bengals, for the first half of the season, you're kind of like, what are they doing? And then all of a sudden they're in the 1 seed conversation.
Yeah. And yeah, they lost to the Browns 33-31, and they looked horrendous in the second half.
The Ravens.
Yeah, they were. That was the game they played last week, and that's where I was like, here we go again. They should have put the Browns away again. Browns, excellent defense, but I don't know. They just had no answers in that second half, and that's the kind of team that will, have an early exit there.
But again, kind of looking at the NFC playoff seeding 1 through 7 right now, if the season ended today, Eagles would have that first round bye. Lions, 49ers, Saints, 2, 3, and 4 seeds, and then Seahawks, Cowboys, Vikings. I think that those 7 teams that we're looking at, I feel comfortable locking that in right now, that will be the NFC playoff picture.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the look of where everybody's at, where they're going, and the path that teams will have to take to get where they want to be. And I kind of want to take a look. I know we've looked at the schedule a lot, but I kind of want to take a look and see some of the games that are going to happen this week in week 11, because we've got some big ones coming up. Obviously, we talked about Ravens Bengals playing on Thursday night. I think for me that will really, if the Bengals win that game, that will really tell me where the Bengals stand as far as making the playoffs. Steelers Browns play, both teams that at this point, especially if the Bengals win on Thursday, that kind of feels like a must win for for both of those teams. And obviously they can't both win, but both of them sitting at 6-3.
I think Garrett will dominate that game, and like he has every game this year. That dude is on fire. So yeah, I think the Browns will take that one.
Yep. Jets and Bills is interesting to me as well. That's the Bills hosting the Jets at home. Obviously, the Bills dropped their opener to the Jets, and the Bills are coming off of a complete debacle against Denver. They have a new OC. I don't know. I feel like the Bills can bounce back and beat a really bad Jets team, but for me, I'm trying to convince myself that the Bills aren't a really bad football team.
Well, the Jets they still have a good defense. That really hasn't changed, but it's more of do they believe in the rest of their team, namely their quarterback. And Robert Saleh has just continued to repeat like he's our guy, and he's not playing that bad, and he is not his press conferences have not sounded great. If you're a Jets fan, so I don't really know what they're gonna do. They really don't have anybody. I don't remember his backup, but there's not a whole lot of answers. Nobody else to really go to in the bullpen there. So
Yep.
I don't know. I think the Bills are very in trouble here if they lose to the Jets, which I think is very, very likely.
Yep. Yeah, I think for me, another interesting game, which is actually the Sunday night game, is Broncos hosting the Vikings.
Yeah.
I really hope that the Josh Dobbs and the Vikings just destroy Denver. You know, not only like
I think
just
they
to
will.
kind of humble them, and obviously the Chiefs fan in me loves to see the Broncos lose. But
Yeah, as much as I was cheering for the Broncos last night, which was just hilarious. That was such a silly game. Absolutely silly game. But the Broncos still, even after beating the Chiefs and the Bills, I still don't believe in this Broncos team. Like, people can, talk on Twitter about stats like Russell's stats are, not that bad, and he's actually got better stats than Mahomes and this and that. It's like, okay. You watch the games, like, they do not look good. Like, they look like he just is scrambling, and, he moves the ball down the field, but it's when plays fall apart. That's basically when they're successful. So I don't think that's sustainable, and this Vikings team is on fire. That should actually, that should be a really fun watch.
Yep. And to close this episode out, we have, in my opinion, what is the game of the year, the Super Bowl matchup, the top two teams in each conference, Monday Night Football, Chiefs host the Philadelphia Eagles. This is one that is, again, game of the year. Chiefs defense is legit. Both of these teams are coming off of a bye week. I think that the Chiefs are going to fix some of their offensive issues and kind of hopefully figure some things out offensively. The Eagles, obviously, they're just an all-around great team. Obviously, we're going to see a couple tush pushes on Monday, and hopefully just a really good back and forth with a Chiefs victory when the clock hits 0.
Let's hope so. The Vegas has the Chiefs by 3. Over unders 46. I think I feel like that might be a little
It's
much
a little high
with the way that the way the Chiefs defense has been playing. We obviously know this team. I don't know what else there is to say. It is gonna be so good. The fact that they're both on bye and have all this time to prepare. They just saw each other in the Super Bowl. I mean, this is gonna be insane. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I think the Chiefs will still come out and be very successful. As much as their struggles have been, and everybody talks about, like, well, this is, a down year, of course, and you look at the stats, Mahomes is still leading in so many crazy categories that he always does.
Yeah, and
they'll still find a way to get it done.
With all the questions that everybody has about the Chiefs offense, and rightfully so. Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts are co-leaders for MVP odds. The Chiefs, despite all of the questions and struggles, are sitting pretty for a 1 seed and first round bye. So it's it's interesting. It's an interesting time as a Chiefs fan to be concerned about so many things, but also like in first place. It's a weird spot to be. Like, you feel like they should be like, some people talk about the Chiefs like they've won 4 games all season. But then you look and you sit back and you're like, oh, it's not that bad.
7-2.
But yeah, Chiefs Eagles. Very excited, and I hope that it lives up to the hype. But that's all we have this week. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time.